Okay, this video is in regards to the Harbor Freight greenhouse that is 6 feet by 8 feet approximately. And I'm just going to give you some background. I got my Master Gardener certification about 20 years ago. I always wanted a greenhouse, but for whatever reason it was never the right time for me to do it. Now that I'm retired and 73 and need more activities to keep me busy, this is the time to utilize all that I've learned over the years. So I bought my first greenhouse. I found the directions included in Harbor Freight 6x8 greenhouses to be incomplete, and sometimes actually leading me to make a mistake that I'd have to correct later. The door was the most confusing. How the heck to put it together? It seemed impossible. I'll explain about the door construction later. So I called Harbor Freight, and after a long wait, the lady helped me. She sent me the link to the YouTube videos that were enormously helpful. Thanks to those people who posted all the videos, I'm sure that an awful lot of people took advantage of the videos. And I really liked the videos that showed modifications and other suggestions. I watched them all. I really wish I'd seen them before starting the whole project and not seeing the suggestions after it was up to the door spot. Anyway, I'm trying in this video to include the best tips and also to add other tips that we thought of which others didn't mention. Also, I was really surprised when I watched every video on erecting this Harbor Freight greenhouse that there were only men who showed what they'd built. I'm a 73-year-old lady, pretty physically fit, and like many other women, I consider myself to be able to build a greenhouse as well as any man can. I thought that maybe by posting this video I'd encourage other women to try to do it by themselves. Also, if I can do it, so can you ladies. And I actually did get someone to help me at the roof spot where you had to get help with someone holding it while you bolted the the rafters onto the vertical walls. Before I get to the specifics of the improvements that we made, I want to mention that the greenhouse comes with a 90-day guarantee. When I was trying to decide if I should get this greenhouse, I mentioned the fact that I lived on the north side of the Pamlico River in North Carolina, 7 miles east of Bath, North Carolina, 40 miles inland from the ocean, and I've already been flooded. In 2011, Hurricane Irene hit us with 5 feet of water. And again in September 2017, we had 3 feet of water that surged around the house for 3 days. Having a greenhouse on the ground level is impossible because of the frequent flooding that kills all but the most robust plants. Because of that, I plan to erect the greenhouse on my 3rd floor deck so that the deck is 10 feet wide. So I'm limited to only being able to buy this 6x8 greenhouse because, you see, I have space on all 4 sides of the greenhouse. I needed that space to be able to erect it, and also, if you can see, I have a roof on my 3rd floor deck, so I couldn't go up that any higher than that, and that's where I was limited. And this 6 foot by 8 foot greenhouse fits the space. I mean, look at this. No flooding today. What a view. And I don't mind. And nothing comes for free. The price we pay for being on the water is we get flooded. And now my greenhouse is on the 3rd floor, and I had the room to walk all around the greenhouse, put in the glass panels, and be able to get repairs in the future or even just clean the glass. The sales rep telling me this, helping me, told me for a mere $70 I could buy a 2-year extension to the guarantee that would automatically start after the first 90-day warranty expired. He said if high winds damaged it, they'd give me a new one. He added that if the 2-year warranty were close to expiring, I could even buy another 2-year extension for the same $79. I thought that was a good insurance policy and chose to buy it, since we get hurricane winds. Next point, many of the videos talk about not tightening any of the bolts until it's fully erected and completed. This is a fantastic idea, because in the process of building it, you frequently have to remove a bolt to add another part or a brace or something else, and if you want to put a solid floor in like I did, you can't do it can't tighten things till it's fully assembled. The other point is the frame is aluminum and the bolts are galvanized metal. This is really important Nobody else mentioned this, but you need to purchase, there's screws that you have to put, as you can see, these screws where you're bolting to this pressure treated plate that is attached to my deck. You're putting in these bolts, and you really have to know this. Make sure you purchase galvanized screws to tie the greenhouse aluminum frame to the pressure treated plate that you need to stabilize the greenhouse. If you use stainless steel screws to attach the aluminum base to the bottom pressure treated wood plate, be aware that stainless steel reacts to aluminum and causes corrosion of the aluminum. This process is called galvanic bimetallic corrosion. When aluminum and stainless steel are used in an assembly adjacent to one another and are in contact with each other, the electrons from the aluminum begin to transfer to the stainless steel, and this results in the vice versa. This results in the aluminum weakening. The weakened aluminum will then corrode at a faster rate, so use galvanized screws in attaching the aluminum base to the pressure treated wood. And as you can see, we used ones that already came with galvanized washers, and everything worked good. I'm going to try to indicate the tips as much as possible in the order they'd be used in the construction of the greenhouse. I didn't video the assembly because there were a lot of good videos on putting it together. It took me well over a week to get it done because I wanted to work slowly and carefully. And I must admit, at my age, I don't do well when I work endlessly. There are not very many videos on putting in the windows, and I'll get to that at the end of my video and show you ideas on putting in the glass and what to avoid doing. I wish that those who had made their videos showed clearly the process of putting in the glass panels and those stupid clips. Since I live in an area that's prone to high winds, I was interested in how to strengthen it against wind. One video talked about buying extra Celsius glazing clips from Amazon. In my opinion, the clips are ugly and fall easily in high winds. I mean, I've only had this greenhouse up for a month, and I've already had the clips fall out, and I had to do other things. And we'll talk about the other options. To prepare to erect the greenhouse on the surface of my composite material deck, as you can see, I wanted to ensure there'd be pressure treated wood base plates using 2x4 wood. So the screws attaching the aluminum base to the wood would be an actual wood, not composite, which may not hold the screws as solidly. The other advantage of putting in this base plate would be that I could insulate within this plate to keep cold air from rising up through the deck into the greenhouse. Here's a warning. The specifications in the manual for the base plate are incorrect. So if you make the base plate exactly to the specifications for the base plate on the manual, you will be out by about an inch. Let me show you. You'll be out by about an inch or so. Well, you're out by about half an inch. You see how I had to route out so that the edge that goes down, the overlapping edge of the greenhouse base plate, had a place to go. They could have told me the exact dimensions. They didn't, so I just had to do a little adjusting. I noticed somebody else commented on that too. So if I had to do it all over again, I would assemble the base first, just the base. Then measure exactly what the outside dimension of the pressure treated plate needed to be and make it appropriately and avoid that problem. Because we're prone to flooding, I have a lot of my second floor deck area as my garden retreat. I wanted to use the greenhouse to keep my plants from the main floor garden over the winter. We're Zone 7B here on the coast of North Carolina. I have 3 citrus, as you can see, a number of Mandevilla, hybrid tea roses, clivia, some oleanders, bougainvilleas, hibiscus, and various other plants, which are quite valuable, big, and I don't have enough room inside the house, nor enough light in the house for them to optimally thrive for the nearly 5 months they'll have to be indoors. So I did my research and found out that only the citrus need to be in the greenhouse. All the other plants can overwinter in my lowest floor, ground level, adjacent to the garage, which never gets lower than 40 degrees, and they will experience and benefit from a winter hibernation. If you want me to make another video and show you how they're happily hibernating over the winter, I can do it. So then I was able to bring in a lot of the annuals and tenders and stuff and do my propagating cases, and I have way more room in my greenhouse. I bought a fantastic grow light. You can see it right there, made by TMLAPY, that you can see hanging. It has 2 buttons that you can see. You press the buttons, and one of them is for vegetables and one of them is for blooms. Or it says if you have all kinds of mixed stuff, which I do, press both buttons. It puts out 3,000 watts of light. It's LED lights, yet only consumes 300 watts. Cost me $200 at Amazon. I think it's worth the money. They recommend you turn on both bloom and vegetables if you have a mixture of plants. Bonus really on last night, cold night, when it got down to 28 degrees, you can turn the light on and it'll raise the greenhouse temperature by between 10 and 20 degrees. So last night my greenhouse was a comfy 68, even though it was in the high 20s Fahrenheit outside. But the light weighs close to 15 pounds, so I needed strong support for it. As you can see, I originally attached the first beam, which is aluminum quarter angle, and I made a support for it. You can see the support for it. That also strengthens that peak part of the roof of the greenhouse, and it has its support. You can see its support, and I originally put that, but the light hung too low, and when that light hangs just a foot or so lower, it doesn't shine on all the plants. So I had to put a next one in, and when I put the next one in, you can see I added 2 more vertical braces there, and I added 2 more vertical braces there with a little horizontal brace, and it nicely sits in, and everything works great, and it's really sturdy, and the light hangs. And I bought those upside down little brackety things that'll hang the light, and everything's perfect, because I really needed strong support. That light weighs close to 15 pounds. And I also put a pressure treated 2-inch by 2-inch piece of wood, used galvanized screws and galvanized washers to screw the aluminum into the pressure treated so that it would be very solid. And as you can see, it's pretty strong. It'll support lots of plants. I use electric wire to make little loops for hooks for hanging plants that I'll eventually use, and I can just put things wherever I want. And there were 2 grades of these aluminum angle brackets at Lowe's. One was seriously stronger and thicker, and one was flimsy. This is the flimsy one, and this one is the stronger one. And I really wish I'd bought both of them in this type of heavier. It wasn't very much more money, but I think it's a better brace. You can see the extra brackets I added to support all of this. The advantage of using that angle iron galvanized with the little holes is you can hang hanging hooks, and you have lots of places to hang. The door was the most confusing. You have to put the door in a certain way, and you can see that these middle bars that hold the windows are attached from the side into the screws. But make sure when you're putting these doors in, I didn't do it, and I'm going to start having a problem. I could have put clear caulk in every one of those little holes and then made it flush before I shoved it in. That would have been a good thing to have done. That way you're not going to have little problems with moisture coming up and seeping up. Another point is this stupid weather stripping. As you can see, it just wants to tear. I took some heavy plastic and I kind of taped it down, but still, it doesn't really hold, and it doesn't really provide a seal. But the solution was to go to Lowe's and buy, I think it was under $20, I got this kit for the 1.5-inch extra weather stripping. Aluminum is bolted to aluminum with self-tapping screws, and you can see how now I've got a good seal. Now I've got this seal. That little seal that I don't have, as you can see, there's a little bit of a crack there. On the super cold days, I just put this little piece of rock there, piece of stone, and as you can see, it seals it way better. And that works for me. So we've taken care of the door issue. I would really tape the weather stripping before it gets torn with some heavy plastic tape, rather than waiting like I did till after the weather stripping starts tearing, because then it's harder just to tape it up and keep it from tearing any further. That weather stripping's really crappy. And I had tried the idea of using the aluminum to keep the seal the joints. I wouldn't do it again, because you can see that aluminum doesn't work as well. I probably would have, if I had to do it over again, just taken that Lexan, that glue, and filled the bottom of all those little holes in the corrugated glass panels, and then I think I might have not had that. And you can also see that I cut a slot. I cut a slot in the bottom of the greenhouse so that I could get, there it is, the slot, I could get the a 12 gauge heavy duty extension cord with a heavy duty set of plugs, so I can have electricity in the greenhouse without having any cords going through and interfering with the insulation. And I use 4 large tubes of clear Lexan glue to adhere the windows to the frame. After gluing in each window and pressing all the edges of the windows to make sure I had good adhesion, I put the stupid clips in to hold the glass panels tight while the glue cured. After the glue cured, a week later I took out the clips. We did have a huge windstorm that after I removed the clips, and the only thing that moved was the little windows lifted a bit in the wind. And I think that's going to be a problem. The windows weren't damaged. I think if I had a hurricane coming, I would get some heavy tape and tape down the windows, or maybe put in a self-tapping screw and actually screw down those windows, because I've already had the windows kind of lift a little bit when the wind's been bad. Just a thought. The hardest thing to do are the ceiling panels, especially in my situation where I only have limited space around the perimeter. I made sure that each of them would fit into the space properly before gluing them in place. They must fit into the groove that's in the crown of the roof, and also fit into that flange that's above the roof gutter. Make sure they fit before gluing them in place. Because I was on the deck and I only had a foot or so between the greenhouse walls and the house wall and the deck rail, I put the panels of the roof into place working from the inside of the greenhouse. In other words, I did this farthest away from me panel first, while I was myself with my little step ladder in this space, working on the panel before. Then to put in this panel, I had myself in my little green and my little step ladder, and I worked from this space. And make sure, before you finish the seal, put clear silicone caulk that's freeze-proof and sun-proof rated. Seal the exterior as well. I really wish I had done that, because I didn't. And what I had to do was pile up blocks to try to get to be able to seal the upper parts, because I couldn't get a step ladder in there, and it was really difficult. So another little mistake I made, and maybe you won't make the same mistake. As you can see, the black handles, those stupid black handles, you had to make a hole. You see how it'll open, even though it's really stupid. It's really, really stupid, and I don't think I'm going to even want to use them. And anybody has a suggestion, I'm open for suggestions if you can think of them. But the bench that I added for my propagating gives me storage space down below. These are my propagating cases that I made. I made this one out of plexiglass. It's 19 inches by 1 foot, and it's wonderful for providing a lovely environment for propagating plants. The bench is 2x4 salt treated with a 1/2 inch salt treated surface, screwed down, works good. Make sure if you put in a floor, make sure you fully tighten the bolts around the floor. You can see that I had to route out a little bit around every one of those bolts on the floor. Well, what I did was the hole between the plate and the deck which I wanted to fill with insulation because otherwise cold's going to run up through the cracks in my deck, is 1.5 inches exactly. So I bought two 3/4 inch big huge styrofoams, and I had 2 layers of 3/4 inch styrofoam, which adds up to 1.5 inches. Filled the interior in between the plates with the styrofoam, and then put a 3/4 inch plywood on top of that to make a floor. And then I used those sticky tiles, self-stick tiles from Lowe's. Each of those tiles is 1 foot by 2 foot. They were 99 cents a tile, and essentially they're 50 cents a square foot, which isn't bad. But what it gives you is light reflects light. And so you want your floor of your greenhouse to be as light as possible to reflect the light back up rather than absorbing the light with having a dark floor. And that way you're optimizing on the light that's in your greenhouse. And lastly, I chose to lay the tiles to the... Oh, I had the plumber. You can see I had the plumber install a tap outside. This is my functional part of my deck. My pretty deck is the lower deck. I had the plumber add a water tap to my 2nd floor deck and the 3rd floor deck where the greenhouse is located, and I'm so wishing I'd asked him to weatherproof the lines. Now when it's cold freezing, which any day now, I'll have to turn the water on, use it, and then let the lines drain each time. Or maybe I'll turn it off altogether, because I have a whole bunch of 1 gallon and 2 gallon jugs filled with water. Good idea, because water is a very efficient heat sink. I added 3 minimum maximum humidity and temperature indicators. As you can see, one's on the floor, one's up here on top of my propagating, and then there's this one that I got from Accurite from Walmart, and this is the wireless transmitter. And over here we have the actual, you can read the temperature, and you can see it's 89 degrees inside. The big picture is 89 degrees inside the greenhouse, and it's 70 degrees outside the greenhouse. So I don't have to go in the greenhouse to double check to see if I need to turn on the light, because I can see what the temperature is outside, I can see what the temperature is inside, and everything works good. This heater here, made by DeLonghi, it cost me close to $150, but it's wonderful. It automatically turns on when the temperature is below 82 in here, and stops when the temperature is 82. And of course, last night our temperature went down to 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and I turned on the light, the LED light as well, to provide supplemental heat, because this DeLonghi all by its little self was only bringing me up to about 60. So when I added this light, it brought me up to in the 70s, which made me quite happy. And I really like the water jugs that I've got in here that are a heat sink. Basically, water is a fantastic heat sink, holds heat, and seeps out the heat when it's cold, but it also gives me a lot of water, and I can just fill it from my upstairs kitchen. I can just fill them whenever I want, and that allows me to just turn off the water that the plumber put in on this 3rd floor deck. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video and find it useful. I have a lady friend who's a bit younger than I, who liked mine so well that she's going to buy one herself, and she lives in the area near the Pumligo River, and she also gets maximum 2 feet of flooding. She plans to have a stone mason, that's what we're waiting on, make her a block foundation wall 16 inches high, and pressure treated plate on top of that, so her greenhouse will be 18 inches off the ground. And she probably won't get very much water in her greenhouse. And any suggestions for putting hers in place would be appreciated. Any suggestions for what I can do to keep those windows from moving in the wind would really be appreciated, because quite frankly, I'm getting a little tired of this. And anyway, I hope you enjoy this, and good luck with your greenhouse. Bye-bye.